So here we're rolling up this electric poultry netting. You can see the cows made their way from where the electric poultry netting was in this strip up to the permanent fence, and found some lush green grass that hasn't been mowed by them yet. They're due to be rotated on this pasture now, any day now, up to the top field where we're letting it rest and get a head start, and they'll get up there and they will mow that down while this is regenerating. So we're currently rolling up all this electric poultry netting. We've got one secondary area where the geese are around the greenhouse, and back near that tree line there's electric poultry netting. We already wrapped it up all the way along the pond and got it rolled up, bringing it with the ATV over, and it's going to go over past that tree line in the other farmer's field in with some cedar trees where we've got it brush cut a little bit. It grew for a whole year, just kind of wild. There's a bunch of goose foot, I believe it's called, or lamb's quarters weeds that grew up there, and it was also seeded with some clover and some bluegrass, I believe it was. I can't remember, so a cover crop. But so yeah, we're getting them moved out onto their own pasture. We're going to separate the geese for breeding more so. We've got a few breeds there. We think they're paired up and they're purebreds anyways, but we're going to separate them just to make sure that the geese going forwards are purebred. Here you can see the pond area is filled up nicely. We're going to get some ducks rotated. We're going to get all the ducks here now that it's melted. And it's still filling up and draining at the other end. The drainage tile for all these farmers' fields for almost 20 acres goes into here, so it keeps it full most of the year. So we took down the back fence and most of the side fence, and then we set that up as a corral to go up to their new pasture that's going to be past this tree line in there. Now we're getting this some of these lengths of fence here. We're going to roll those up, and we're going to set up part of their pasture. We're probably going to have a fence around the entire cedar field, and then we're going to have paddocks within that fences growing across. We're going to have a grid pattern to rotate them. So I'm just rolling up some of the last of the fence. Just go grab it, pull the pole, and the other part you just let roll up like that. I've maybe explained in other videos. He's over there grabbing some of the other fence we rolled up. Cows are mowing that strip that was untouched, and we've got it corralled there. You'll see in a minute when we go to herd them in. Here we go, rolled it out, and he's standing it up. Tell him to go over.
See, they've been herded once and it ended well for them. Sweet, that was easy.
They look excited now. They started sprinting. They're like, "You're not getting me out of here. I see lots of green grass."
Smashing the trees.
Oh, are they a bit?
But once they calm down.
Yeah, once they're grazing.
Okay, let's.
There we go. We got the geese and the ducks herded in. We just got to close the fence back up. So we got the geese in. We got this fence closed up. Got another fence rolled up there. Another fence rolled up there. We got their quadrant here. It's not quite a quarter of the pasture. It's only about a third probably of this half. So then we're going down all the way down the half. So we got two more fences to put down at the end of that one, all the way down. to the bottom where you see the grass there.
First
One
time on
more
pasture.
here. That's got to continue all the way down there. And then it'll be about one fence at the back. And then we got these fences to use for quadrants, even though we're probably going to divide them up a little bit more than that. The more often you rotate them on a smaller area is more beneficial for the birds and for the pasture. They mow it down more evenly when you keep them in a condensed space, and then rotating them more frequently gives that rest between the regenerate cycle. Rotate, rest, regenerate, rotational pasture. That's how it works. So that's what we're doing. Our test trial with these geese on a smaller cedar field over here worked great last year. We're expanding the flocks. We're going to try and cover. We're going to have cedars planted in all these areas, and we've got other ones way down there that we got to cover. So this has worked amazingly. So we're going to continue and try and have enough flocks for all the cedar fields, so that we don't have to do the labor of mowing and brush cutting. Okay, now we're just setting up the poultry netting around these barred rocks here. We're gonna let the chickens do what they do best and help spread out all this cow manure in this higher traffic area. The cows were fed here a little bit more often in the winter than some other areas, along this whole, where that whole fence line was, where we could bring them hay easily with the tractor. So they're going to spread all this manure out. There's a bunch of flies, maggots and stuff starting to grow in there already. So they're going to eat that. They're going to benefit from that. They're not going to need as much food. They're going to spread out that cow manure, and that's how you rotate your chickens behind your cows, and they spread out that cow manure so that it can break down faster. It lowers your fly population, which helps out your cows. The manure helps out the chickens because they get all those bugs that like to grow in the cow manure, and your pasture benefits from the chickens after the cows by spreading out that manure, evenly fertilizing it, and then the cows, when they are rotated back here, will have better grass growing because it was fertilized better by their manure being spread out, and they won't want to eat around their paddies like they tend to do. They will have it spread out nicely, so it'll be broken down, so they'll eat everywhere. And the chickens' poo, as we know, their manure is high in nitrogen and everything. So I just saw some geese flying over above. I was like, I hope those aren't our geese that we just herded, because some of them are pretty flighty. But so we got they're high nitrogen. They'll fertilize this area even better too. So when it's opened back up for the cows for this entire area, it will be higher in nitrogen. We're probably not going to have birds in this whole area, but we do plan to rotate chickens past. Oh, look at him. He's fighting over, offering up a worm that he found to the girls. So birds in nature eat like 90% bugs. So why are you feeding your chickens 90% grain when you can feed them 90% bugs and grass on pasture, right? It just makes sense. So many different ways you can do regenerative agriculture to be better for the birds, better for the people, and better for the pasture, better for the land. Year after year improves until you get that cycle going, that permaculture cycle where everything just works together like it would in nature. All right, I better get this fence up. That cow is... All right, there we go. We got these two electric poultry nettings in a square hooked up. Just got to rehook up the charge controller. Like I mentioned before, one poultry net, 164 foot length in a square is 1,500 square feet. Two together brings it up quickly to 5,000 square feet. So it's way more cost effective for your square footage to get at least two. Now, it's a good idea. You want to make sure to secure your ends. It's good to have one, they recommend, secured to a T-post to be solid. You can just drive this in with a T-post driver and move it around as you need with your electric poultry netting. It's not always needed. I rarely use it, and most of the time I just use corner pegs, like tent post pegs kind of thing, down to the ground, and that's what I'll end up doing on these sides. Probably not going to bother with it today. We'll do that tomorrow. I'm going to go up and set up the Geese charge controller now after I get these ones set up. Chickens are all happy. We're going to open the greenhouse back up after herding them and let that be open for ventilation. So just to add in there, another benefit of rotating your poultry behind your ruminants, like your cows, are that your cows like the long grass and your chickens like the short grass. Cows like the long grass because they're less likely to get worms if they're eating long grass. So you have your cows go through first, they eat the long grass, cut it short. For your chickens, your ducks, and your geese, the geese prefer the shorter grass and they eat the shorter grass. Then the chickens spread out that manure and everything, like I was saying. So they benefit one another in that sense. Here you can see where the cows were, it's mowed all perfectly. And where the geese were, it's mowed even shorter. And they're gone now. Now this is gonna have time to rest and regenerate, and it will always be better, even though we would have liked to move them a little sooner from here, but we wanted to let the other areas have a chance to grow. And it's spring and everything just started growing anyways, so no matter where they were, they would have eaten it because there wasn't much green, and they haven't had much green all winter. I'm going to go over here now and show you where the cows were when we opened up that fence at the beginning of this video, and we can show you how they mowed that down so well, so fast, in about an hour. Okay, now we're back over here. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but we can, but this is significantly longer where the electric poultry netting was, if you remember, compared to where the cows were. And when they were opened up to this hard fence line, they mowed it down. Look at this, look at this. You can tell they're liking anything fresh, anything long and fresh and green. So they're gonna have a little bit more time down here. We opened them up to a significant amount of new grass area, and they're gonna mow that down, clear this up to the fence line. No need for cutting this behind a tractor for a couple hours, rotate some animals there. If you do it properly, you can sell your mower deck for your tractor. Don't even need it. Regenerative agriculture takes care of itself. We've started to realize that why would you buy a lawnmower when you can buy a few sheep or a few cows? Sure, have your nice, push lawnmower, a small ride-on or whatever near your house if you want a nice area for playing with your kids. But if you do rotational pasture nice enough, you're always going to have a grass area that's nice after it's rested and regenerated for 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. So save your money on gas. The amount of time I spent at the other property, it'd be 2-3 hours on a weekend cutting the lawn. I don't want to do that. Same amount of time I put in on a weekend, maybe a little bit more. I'm moving some fences and we're getting a bunch of food from it. It's doing the work for me. The gas I spend, the maintenance, the price of the tractor to begin with to cut the lawn, you're sharpening the blades, all this stuff in between, you add it all up. You could spend that money to have animals to do the work for you, which evens out for the same amount of money, and you get a bunch of free food from it if you look at it that way. Once the electric poultry netting's not cheap, but it pays itself off pretty quick when you get a bunch of farm fresh eggs for it, especially when they're organic pastured. They're not cheap that way. Hear that? That's a really strong grounding out. So you can always do a perimeter check of your fence, make sure there's not anything holding it up too much. I often like to angle it outwards, so rather than the way it is you can grab this wire. The vertical ones aren't electrified, so you can grab them when it's on. And I like to angle it out, because my idea is if a predator's, like a fox or a coyote's wanting to push under that fence, he's going to be more likely to get shocked when it's angled out than if it's angled out towards them rather than if it's angled in. So, and then now I got that not shocking. It's going to be grounding out in a lot of spots. Charge controller's charged up good. But another thing I do sometimes is just put a piece of wood or rubber or anything that's not conductive just there to stop it. Little pieces of whatever. If it's not too wet, it's not going to conduct as well. So wood can conduct electricity if it's wet, but not as well. So you can hear it grounding out there. It's always going to ground out. You can never get it perfect, but that's where putting those corner pegs on all the sides, tightening it up, we'll pull it up off the ground, ground it out less, keeping that grass cut short, we'll ground it out less. The bonus is once you rotate often, your birds will be mowing that, like our geese mow it close to there, or the chickens or the cows. And you don't really need to mow or whip or snip or anything yourself. So clear cut line where that pasture was, eh? All right, well, got to go up to the geese now. We'll show you that again. You know, it's a good habitat for geese here. When I just heard something in there. Wonder if there's a fox or something waiting. You know, it's good habitat for geese when there's Canadian geese right there. We saw it earlier today. They flew away. Looks like they're making a nest. Probably they're getting ready to lay eggs if they haven't already. Thought they were gonna fly away. All right, we're about to call it a day for tonight. We got the fence set up for the quadrants right here and here, you can see, and we got this fence going down to there. We don't have it connected at the whole perimeter yet. We're a little shy. We still need one more fence, should make it down here. And to finish the back, we got the fence going along the back for the most part, and the fence is going along. You can't see it. There's tall weeds there on the other side of a little kind of ditch creek right through here. So that's all set up. Probably around, it's about 5 acres here. Pretty much exactly. So we've got the fences set up for the quadrants, and we're going to be able to rotate them from one to the other, and they'll mow this down, and it'll be like a golf green, and they'll have the weeds under control in no time, and we can keep them here maybe all summer, or rotate them elsewhere, or use another new flock elsewhere. You can hear it grounding out a little bit, but this charge controller is really strong, and it grounds out a lot more. This one's 6. So this is what you would call chop and drop. It's a method of in farming where you chop down the old stalks of a crop, for example, or in this case, weeds. Really, it's food. This is goosefoot, I believe it's called, also known as lamb's quarters, also known as wild spinach. It's edible to humans as well. So this was the primary weed that grew here, and we hope it grows back actually, because the geese love to eat it, along with dandelions. They're one of their favorite, and there's some grass and clover was seeded here for a cover crop in with the rows of cedars. So we're cutting this one now. As you can see, we brush cut the rows a little bit just to get the sticky stuff down a little bit. Most of the seeds fell down, so this wild spinach should grow back. And these geese have been over on this other pasture here with a few chickens as well and a few ducks for about a week, exactly a week actually. And you can already see what they've done with the pasture and how well rotational pasture works for this tree farm. We're trying it with much younger cedars. These were just older trees, but planted first last fall. We got some barred rocks in here with an Americana for some sexed green layers, but you can see the geese have what they don't eat, they trample for the most part, at least in the rows. They get it way better than what we can do with a brush cutter. We do a brush cut in a new field at the beginning of the year, and that's it. And then basically the chickens eat the weed seeds, the ducks and geese and chickens eat the weeds. The geese mostly eat the grasses, but as we know, chickens eat a lot of grass when they have availability to it, being on pasture. So you could see, I mean, you don't see much green because they ate it all, and there wasn't much here yet. And that's the importance of getting them on pasture early in the year, is they can get ahead of stuff. This might be a parsnip, poisonous parsnip, so we'll have to watch out for them. We might dig some of them out. We were hoping they would eat them, but maybe that's the only thing they don't like, understandably. But they might eat that if they got hungry enough, I'm not sure. But yeah, so you can see just how well it worked. You're coming down the rows. We left the sticky stuff in between the cedars, but that's okay because it keeps them from trampling the cedars, and they walk primarily down the paths, and they've grazed just about everything edible here. It's early in the year, so it hasn't grown that much, but there was quite a bit here. As you can see, it looked very much like this when we first put them there. You can see a lot more green here. Dandelions especially, so they ate those dandelions right down to the ground. Clover grasses, everything right down to the ground, but the roots are still there. They just eat it to a golf green height, and in a week that'll be grown back, and it'll be better every time they're rotated there because they fertilize it every single time. And there's a lot of clay content here because this land a long time ago was used for corn and soybeans. So as we've mentioned in previous videos, the problem with that is that it destroys the land. They suck out everything out, and all that's left is clay. So there's a pretty high clay content, but it was left dormant for years to just kind of go wild. Went wild with some weeds and everything and just being cut. So it actually restored a lot back to the land, and you can see how much the nature's coming back. That's all part of regenerative agriculture and permaculture and biodiversity, is you got multiple things, multiple layers. Got trees and grasses and cover crops, and not just one type of grass, many. And it's okay to be weeds. They get more balance of nutrients in their diet when there's different greens to eat. That goes for cows as well, and goats, and any ruminant. It doesn't need to be perfect grass. It doesn't need to be weed free. Weeds are just something herbicide companies make you think that they're a problem, right? As we know, dandelions are one of the healthiest things for you, for humans. It's very important for ducks and geese in their diet. Dandelion greens are very high in niacin. That helps their bone development as they grow fast, and it's important for their bone development. You can give them brewer's yeast if they don't have that. Looks like there's a few like succulents here, but you can see all this clover starting to come up and patches of grass. The weeds took over a little bit more. But once this is mowed more regularly by the geese, the weeds don't like to be short, so there'll be more grasses and the dandelions and the clovers to come back, and less of the weeds. But we're not even worried about it with this because our primary weed is great forage for geese. It's so much so it's in the name, in the nickname, one of the names of of that green. So, and I ate some and it tastes delicious. I might even make a salad out of it. I was eating some when we were in here before. So anyways, we got to cut all these down. We're just getting it down a little bit more. This will add a lot of organic matter, a lot of carbon material with the sticky material to go in with their poo, kind of be a bit of a natural compost all around. It'll build up the organic matter. It'll retain more moisture. It'll be more drought resistant. And the works, as we know, all those things happen with regenerative agriculture. So we just want to get these down primarily so the sun tracks this way so it doesn't beam in here. And you can see how green it is over there. And at the back end, that was all cover crop seeded as well. And it was mowed a couple times. So that was why the weeds didn't kind of take over. But guarantee you, in a few days, they'll have all those dandelions eaten up. And they'll come back and they'll come back. Actually, sometimes the ducks, I think, even eat the roots of them. So if you don't like dandelions, they'll get rid of them for you or keep them at bay. But this fence is grounding out a lot. We got to get our corner pegs in and stuff, but got it set up initially. And it's going to look more like a golf green and more like this. Guarantee you, by the end of this year, if not in a couple months. And they're going to have it mowed down real nice. I mean, this isn't a golf green, but it's a little longer, but you know, like looking like a lawn in between. Save a ton of labor. You can do this if you have an orchard. A lot of people do it with orchards, like I mentioned. It can keep things really nice. And it saves a ton of labor. This is probably the only labor we're going to do with actually cutting grass all year. We can do it once. We didn't do it once all last year, so it got a little out of control, but the trees did amazing. The weeds, I think, all that volume of plant matter, the roots are important. It feeds the microbes in the soil, and the microbes feed the plants and everything, so they feed off the decaying matter and everything. So last thing you want is uncovered soil. That is the worst thing you can do for your soil. It's living soil. There's many layers. There's through here the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of grasshoppers and crickets that live here. Once they get going in the summer, you walk through here, it's like a locust plague almost. It's amazing. So you can just picture how much the chickens are going to have to eat once the bugs get going full scale. You know, beetles and all the works in there, right down to the things you can't see with the naked eye. And it all works together, and you want to keep that soil shaded. That's why I think having this let grow tall in the first year of these cedars helped shade the soil, protect from the damaging sun. It also protects from the rain. Acts like a million little hammers beating on the soil surface. If you don't have mulch, or you don't have a living mulch like grass, cover crop, what happens is it compresses the soil, and it's not loose soil. So then the roots have a hard time growing in there, because all plants, and you can remember this with any type of gardening, all plants grow in the voids between soil particles and not in soil itself. So that's why loose soil is important. That's why they till. But like I said before, the issue with tilling is you kill a lot of those microbes. Now, how do you keep loose soil? You keep a cover crop, you keep it mulched, you chop and drop, you don't strip your fields all the time. If you are doing corn, that's why you see modern farmers are now realizing they chop and drop. They leave the corn stalks all winter. They leave that organic matter. They're starting to realize the mistakes they've made over generations, and they're starting to correct that. And you'll see more and more people go to this way in the future when they realize that they've been doing it wrong for so long. Just because you do something full time doesn't mean you do it right. Most things are done wrong in this world. It might be the easy way, right? The easy way is just spray it with a bunch of pesticides. But is really that the easy way in the long run when you have all these issues? You don't have that soil life, that soil structure and that soil life to help the plants grow. So watch this in a week. It'll probably be in another video, but you already saw what had happened in 1 week. They're going to be here for a week, then they're going to be there for a week, then they're going to be there for a week, and then they'll be back here. Actually, this is probably going to be 6 pastures. And then we're going to have geese in with cedars way back near the tree line with other age of cedars, and there'll be different ages of groups as we grow the flocks to do the work for us, get goslings, get eggs, get meat as a bonus. But they are a tool to improve the land, fertilize the land, mow the land, work the land. They're a tool. Your birds are a tool, and what they give you is just a bonus, is one way to look at it.
You want in?
All right,
You want in?
now it's time to move the pasture. Got it open up. We let them run out of feed, so they're gonna hopefully want to go through the fence.
There, you're in.
We're gonna have to herd them in if they don't want to go on their own for the feed. All right, and they herded over easy because they got feeders full of food, going nuts. Some of them are already eating the grass. They'll have this mowed down in a week. Pretty soon it's gonna grow a lot faster, and they'll have a lot more for a longer time. Just gotta close the fence back up now. Make sure there's no goose eggs left in there. We just found another one since this morning.